The muffled sound of Julia's cries filled the room. Alessia rocked her gently, trying to calm her, while her husband Marco watched her with concern. For a few days, their little girl had seemed inexplicably irritable, and nothing seemed to comfort her. It wasn't like her. Despite being born prematurely, Julia had always been a serene baby, but now something was wrong. They would never have imagined that the cause of everything was hidden right there, in those diapers that were supposed to protect her. The birth of a child is a life-changing event, and for Alessia and Marco Ricci, Julia's arrival had brought equal measure of joy and responsibility. Having been born prematurely, their little girl required even more attention than usual, and they didn't hold back. They wanted only the best for her, especially when it came to products intended for her hygiene and safety. For this reason, when Alessia went to the supermarket, she had no hesitation in grabbing 2 packs of Pampers diapers. A reliable brand, renowned for quality and safety. No mother would ever have imagined that such a product could hide a danger. Back home, she immediately started using them. Everything seemed normal, until she noticed a change in Julia's mood. The baby cried incessantly, as if she were uncomfortable or even in pain. Alessia and Marco tried to find an explanation, perhaps colic? Or maybe the first teeth. But one morning, the discovery was shocking. While she was changing the little girl, Alessia felt something strange in the diaper. With a shiver down her spine, she examined the padding more carefully. And then she saw it. A jagged piece of metal was stuck right in the part that should have protected Julia's delicate skin. Her heart pounded as she pulled out the diaper to examine it better. She couldn't believe it. With shaking hands, she rummaged through the newly opened package and discovered that all the diapers contained similar pieces of metal, as if they had been incorporated during production. "Marco! Run here!" Alessia shouted, her voice cracking with panic. Her husband came running over and, when he saw what she had in her hand, his face went white. "What the hell is that?" he exclaimed, taking a diaper and turning it over in his hands in disbelief. They were all like this. What if Julia had hurt herself badly? Look at these rashes on her skin. If she had cut herself deeper, Alessia couldn't even finish her sentence. There was no time to waste. They grabbed some diapers and rushed to the emergency room, their hearts in their throats. In the emergency room, the doctor who greeted them was shocked. "I've never seen anything like this. These are clearly pieces of a metal gear. If they had been bigger or sharper, they could have caused very serious damage." Alessia held the little girl tightly in her arms as the doctor examined her carefully. Fortunately, the wounds on Julia's skin were only superficial scratches, and there was no risk of infection. But the thought of what could have happened did not leave them calm. That evening they returned home with their little girl, relieved for her health but furious about what had happened. How was it possible that a company like Pampers had allowed such negligence? How many other children were at risk? The next morning, they decided to take action. Alessia and Marco immediately contacted the company. After much persuasion, they finally managed to speak to a supervisor, who was apologetic and promised a thorough investigation. "We don't want compensation," Marco said firmly. "We want to know what went wrong and make sure it doesn't happen to other babies." Pampers' response was that it was an unfortunate coincidence. After an internal investigation, they discovered that the metal pieces came from a production machine that had just had a faulty gear replaced. The diapers from that batch were the first to come out of maintenance, and in an unfortunate oversight, no one had checked for foreign bodies before distributing them to stores. An unfortunate coincidence? Alessia and Marco couldn't believe it. And the recall of the batch? The consumer notice? Why didn't you do anything to protect other children? Alessia pressed. But their questions remained unanswered. Frustrated by the company's lack of action, they decided to take matters into their own hands. The story could not be confined to a simple episode of bad luck. With the courage that only a desperate parent can have, Alessia began to document every detail. Every news item, every online comment, every story from other parents became a piece in a mosaic that revealed a much larger picture of carelessness and potential dangers. As the days passed, their Facebook post went viral. Parents from all over the world began to share similar stories, testimonies that revealed an invisible knot in the safety chain of children's products. In the chaos of comments and messages, Alessia realized that she wasn't just against a company, she was against a system that, in the name of profit, had forgotten the safety of the little ones. The media pressure grew rapidly and, in a short time, Pampers found itself with its back to the wall. The usually solid and reliable company was forced to declare that it was conducting further investigations. Behind this facade, however, was a disturbing reality: the quality control system had failed, and this failure put thousands of children at risk. The pain of that night kept Marco awake at night, and he began to reflect on how little he could really control in life. He, who had always done everything he could to protect his family, now felt helpless in the face of a system that had failed at the most delicate moment. But that same helplessness soon transformed into a desire to do more, to give a voice to those who could not shout out against injustice, and to ensure that every parent could wake up in the morning knowing that the products they trusted were truly safe. In the midst of this whirlwind of emotions, an unexpected discovery opened up further food for thought. During one of the investigations conducted by a group of attentive consumers, an internal company document came to light. Dating back to a few weeks before the accident, that document highlighted critical issues in the newly installed machinery. The engineer's comments spoke of minor anomalies and possible critical issues during assembly, terms that until then had been calmly ignored. These notes made everyone understand that this was not just an isolated case, but a potential systemic defect that could have had much more serious consequences. The news spread quickly, and it was soon understood that it was not enough to remove the offending batch. It was necessary to radically rethink the entire quality control system, entrusting the task to independent and specialized bodies. The community of parents and consumers had joined in a unanimous chorus: the safety of our children could not be put on the back burner. In bars, in squares, online and offline, there was heated discussion about how an accident like that could be avoided in the future. Some suggested creating an association that, in collaboration with experts and lawyers, would check the batches of products intended for the little ones. The reaction was such that professionals in the sector, lawyers, and even former employees of the company began to clarify the internal mechanisms and the responsibilities of each actor involved. Alessia and Marco thus became symbols of a battle that, if won, could have changed the rules of the game in favor of consumers. It wasn't long before Pampers was forced to completely revise its protocols. It was no longer just a matter of recalling the incriminated product, but of a real internal revolution: the introduction of new technologies for quality control, significant investments in staff training, and the commitment to ensure that every stage of the production process was subjected to rigorous and independent checks. The authorities, for their part, announced their intention to carry out periodic checks on all companies in the sector, so that consumer safety would never again be compromised by economic interests. For Alessia, this change represented a small victory, although she knew well that the battle was just beginning. Despite the joy for the progress achieved, the thought of how many other children could be exposed to similar risks still tormented her. So, she decided to actively engage in raising awareness. She participated in meetings, conferences, and public debates, recounting her experience in a sincere and direct way, urging institutions and companies to never neglect the safety of products intended for the little ones. During one of these meetings, amidst an attentive audience and penetrating questions, Alessia understood the profound value of her testimony. What had begun as a distressing episode had transformed into a universal warning: the safety and well-being of our children must never be sacrificed on the altar of profit. Her words, full of experience and emotion, resonated as a call to never let your guard down and to always fight for what you believe in. Marco, at her side, recounted his experience, recalling how a single mistake could unleash a chain of events with dramatic consequences.